So the Gates of Slumber, and you guys have a new EP that is coming out called The Gates of Slumber. It's self-titled. Um,
Yeah,
At Dawn. I really, really like At Dawn. That fucking
awesome,
song is so good, dude.
awesome. Yeah, that one. Chuck Brown, drummer. He wrote that one. He's actually the singer guitar player in Apostle of Solitude as well. Um, yeah, he brought that one in. Didn't have any lyrics, so we worked the music up on that over space of 2 or 3 weeks, and then I just sort of he had a title. He's good at that. He'll bring in a song with a title, and then I'll just be like, okay, now I got to figure out what to write about that includes these words in some way, shape, or form. So, um, actually, during the pandemic, I fell in love with a channel on YouTube called Real Time History, which is a bunch of German academics, and there's an American thrown in the mix there, an American or two that's living over there, I believe. And they do in-depth history pieces. Actually, they did a week by week blow by blow of World War One, celebrating the 100th anniversary of that. Now, I wasn't clued into their channel at that time, but one of the things they did that really had me enthralled was there was a six-part series on the Franco-Prussian War, which unified Germany and created the nation of Germany in the 1800s, 1870s. And it was 6-hour documentary series on it, that I just ate up, and very interesting. A lot of stories, a lot of letters, and things like that. It's all on YouTube, Real Time History. You guys can find it. But one of the interesting things that sort of it was the kicker for the song was, because it was very early. The Industrial Revolution hadn't really kicked off. Mass production wasn't what it is now.
Right.
So a lot of the cannons the Germans built, um, they were all manufactured by different makers in different places, and each one of them had their own pitch. That the French, when they heard a D minor, they knew that the gun over here had gone off, and there was a big high explosive round or something coming in, and that was Cannon's Ring, a Song of Death, was that was the beginning of the song right there, and then the rest of it was just sort of making it rhyme, making it make sense.
That's really fucking cool. Like that's to tie in history and music. I think obviously I don't think there's a lot of people that dig into it like you do. So it's to bring those in and have that expressed through the music. I think one helps perpetuate the history. But it's
Uh-huh.
also really cool, like how the song comes from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's like probably. I'm not super heavily influenced by Iron Maiden. I love Iron Maiden from the 1980s. I grew up with them, and that's one of the things I always appreciated. Like the Trooper being about to charge of the Light Brigade and all that stuff. It's just like there's so much interesting stuff to pull from history that you
Yeah.
can you know adapt and turn into a song, and it just kind of worked out. I'm glad that it really. I love the tune. It's one of the most fun to play.
Yeah, it's a killer tune. You guys are from Indiana, right?
Yeah, Indianapolis. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're not far away. I'm in Louisville.
Oh, right on, right on.
What venues do you like to play around there?
Really haven't played out in years and years. My favorite venue that we had was a place called the Fifth Quarter, which is sadly closed. That was kind of like our home base club about 10, 15 years ago at this point. Since we reformed in like 2019, we started rehearsing for Hell Over Hammerberg, which was in March of 2020. Um, and when we got back, of course, everything was locked down, and we actually have not played a show since April of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, there's new venues and all kinds of shit has changed. I just don't know anything about it.
Yeah, there's I don't know. Indianapolis is a lot of fun. I'm really digging like Black Circle personally.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. I've played Black Circle a few times, but not before. They just did a remodel not long ago. I haven't played there since, but yeah, I have played at Black Circle.
right
But
on.
again, not for the pandemic.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that it's been definitely a minute. So
Yeah.
this is the first EP in like 13 years.
Yeah, this is our first release in since we did The Wretch on Rise Above Records, and then after that there was I don't remember Scion Cars. They had a thing that they were doing where they were supporting. They had a festival and like various like sponsorship things that they were doing for like heavy bands that were out there, and we got in on that. And there was another record released, Stormcrow. That was technically, I guess, our last release, even though it wasn't a commercial thing. It was just kind of like a free gimme for a car company,
Mhm.
which I'm really, you know, that was, stuff that happened back then. Still love those songs, and they're out there. I think there's like streaming on a couple services or something like that. But yeah, um, after the after the fall of 2013, we were no longer a band, and unfortunately, Jason passed away in April of 2014. So, with his passing, the band came to an end. Um, and it's odd, I was doing other projects and still getting emails occasionally. One guy in particular, Wolf Moomin from Hell Over Hammerberg Fest, he had emailed several times asking if Gates of Slumber could play Hell Over Hammerberg, and I was just like, well, I got these other bands, but not so much Gates because there's nobody in Gates. Gates is over. And I'd in like 2018, I tore my Achilles tendon while working out, and was flat on my back for about 6 months. And during that time, Chuck, who was the drummer on the first record, very first and second records that we did, The Awakening and Like a Plague Upon the Land. I've known him since high school, good friends, and he was coming by to check on me, and just hang out, and we shooting the shit about old shit from 20 years ago. And he leaves one day to, he's got to go on to work, and I open up my phone and there's an email from Wolf, and the germ of an idea pops in my head. It's just like, there's no law that says Chuck can't play drums. We can't find a bass player. Fly over to Germany. They're going to, make sure that the fees for the fest are going to cover the travel, the food, the drink. Then I know they're going to give us food and drink, and they're going to put us up in a hotel. And originally it was just going to be a one-off. We were just going to, me and an old friend hop, grab a bass player, hop on a plane, fly over there and play a show. Um, and then that turned into a small tour, club shows through like northern Germany and Scandinavia, Finland, and then yeah, and now we're having this conversation. It was sort of inevitable, I guess, because it's much easier to like work on new things than it is to try to remember what the hell we did 20 years ago. So it's like, we're like, okay, how did I play this? Oh, I got this new riff. Check this out.
Yeah.
So it was kind of inevitable that it was going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's really cool how like that people just getting together and hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
connecting, and this other person like, hey, I want you to play. You're like, oh shit, let's do it. And now
Yeah,
you
it
got
was a
new
perfect
music out.
storm. It was a
Yeah.
perfect storm. If I hadn't have been injured, I would still probably be trying to work on, other projects, because I had no intention of going back to Gates. It was just like, um, you know, I think we had been like bullshitting about like our first tour, and because our first tour was in Europe, and then we did a small mini tour in the U.S. with Chuck. Um, and we had we just reminiscing about the silly crap that we got up to back then, and it was just a good time. And then an email, and it's like, huh, if it hadn't been for everything falling together perfectly, it never would have happened.
Yeah, that's so crazy. It's like that, the butterfly effect.
Yeah, I mean, really, it absolutely is.
That's awesome. Now, do you have with the release, do you have any like goals or thresholds that you hope that it hits?
No, I mean, when we got back together, it was Gates of Slumber. And this is back before, it was a very stressful fucking band to be in sometimes. Um, you know, just constant arguments and constant things were never good enough. Um, I remember damn near coming to blows with Jason, my best friend, and the drummer Bob at the time, over the cover for Hymns of Blood and Thunder, whether the horns on the fucking Warriors helmet were big enough. Did they need to be bigger? Did they need to be smaller? These sorts of like small details that we would just end up, not talking for a week or so. We're not talking until the next band practice. Even having band practices where we don't speak because we're just in a bad fucking mood. you know,
Yeah.
so when Chuck and I got back together, like when I floated the idea to him, I was just like, we're not going to have any stress. There's no stress. There's no expectations. Yeah. So yeah, just no stress. And it's like, if, I don't have any like expectations, I'm frankly kind of stunned and flattered that anybody gives a shit after like a decade, because, I had people while I was working on the subsequent band to Gates of Slumber, Wretch, we did a European tour and we'd done some other things, and like, I was trying to get that going. But I was told point blank the Gates of Slumber was not that big a deal, and that, it was just like there was no like super big demand. Essentially, was what I took away from the conversation that I had. So the fact that anybody cares is really flattering and kind of touching to me, and that's beyond my expectations at this point.
Yeah, well, that's cool. It's cool that, the expectations are totally, exceeded. And
Beyond belief.
I guess it goes to show that you don't really see, I guess in the moment, right? You don't
Mhm.
really see how much a band is appreciated or wanted, and
Yeah,
until after the fact and they're not around.
yeah. I mean, and it's really awesome, to have, to just have anybody that cared at all. Well, like when we released the record, I was like, well, it'll probably go the way of all things in a couple weeks. No one will give a shit, but at least we put these out, and we're still working on new material. We've got a split release that we're working on, and hell, I've got a whole album written that's just sitting there that needs done. So
Right on. So, what kind of physical copies are you guys going to have with this release?
I'm sorry, you kind of broke up there.
Oh, what kind of physical copies do you all have?
So everything's going to be available through Svart. I know that they're doing CD and they're going to do vinyl. Um, I don't know if we're going to be stocking our web store or not. I'm shit at mail. Like I years and years ago, I was just like, I have fucked this all up. I'm going to take my hands off of it. Other people can do it. Keep the money. You know, go crazy with it. I don't give a shit. Um, you know, so like, to the best of my knowledge, everything is going to be available through Svart. I don't know if they have a U.S. distribution deal or not. I'm sure they probably do through somebody. But yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Do you know what kind of vinyl they're going to have? Is it going to be black, or are they going to have different variants?
there's going to be black, and then I believe there were some colors floated. But you know, I'm that's kind of where after Gates of like going back to the stress of Gates of Slumber, I kind of disconnected from a lot of things. There's a famous anecdote about the release of the Headless Cross record, Sabbath's Headless Cross. And I think it was on like one of those History of Sabbath VHSs back in the Stone Age. Um, and it's like Tony, he and Tony had showed up at IRS with a tape that had their mix of Headless Cross, what Tony and Cozy had wanted to do. And the label was just like, well, this is very nice and all, but this is the mix of the record that we're going with. And they were just like, boom. And, Cozy all like crushed the fucking tape and was pissed off about it, but it was just the way it was going to go. And my takeaway from that is that if Tony Iommi can be dictated to, then who the hell am I to dictate to anybody else? So, I kind of just like, I'm very much go with the flow. If the label says, "Hey, we want to do digipacks," great, let's do digipacks. We're going to do clear vinyl, great, we're doing clear vinyl. I have enough of a job trying to just keep it between the paint
Yeah.
that me worrying and bothering other people about things that they're, it's sort of like, um, Chuck and Steve, like I'm sure they delved into the mixes and they gave notes. With the guy who produced and engineered us, Mitch, we hired him. I trusted him and the studio because I'd worked with him with Wretch and I had great, results then. And it's like, your name is going on the record. So, do the best job you can. I trust you to do the best job you can, and I know you're going to deliver the goods because you're going to do it. So I don't follow around behind people anymore and like second guess them. If you, it's sort of like anything you do. Like if you hire a plumber, I'm not going to be like, hey man, are you seeing that right? You can't be like, you can't get in on them and be like, well, I'm going to spot check your work because I don't know anything that I can't. Like I have some small digital recording stuff here at home, and I can barely make the shit work. So who am I?
Right.
Man, I don't know. I think it needs to come up 1/4 dB in the left. I'm not that.
Yeah.
I'm not.
No, my palate's not there either. You put me in a studio, I'll play and do the thing, and then someone
And
else.
then other people. I
Yeah.
do the tune. I can write the words. I'll work really hard to try to make my part better. I like sitting there for hours and hours and hours with like a little recording on my phone. Like the solo has to start here. Nope, you're not doing it right. Nope, you're not doing it right. Oh, there it's right. And it doesn't really matter because by the time I get into the freaking studio, I'm ready to just improv it anyway. But at least I've got some of the ideas down that I know where I'm going to be.
Yeah, like a basic framework to it.
Yeah, that I just worry about the guitar and trying to make that as good as it can be. Like in the past, I used to sweat my vocals. We would do take after take after take after take, and it's just like I don't do that anymore. There's no reason. It's like this is where I'm at. This is what my voice sounds like. This is what's going on, on the track. It's not. I can't. I can't morph into Dio.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Now, that would be cool if we could just
Oh,
like, hey, I want to be so and so right now.
absolutely. I wish I had the range of like who doesn't wish they had the range of Ian Gillan? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like perfect. I wouldn't be me then. I'd be somebody else.
Yeah. It'd be Ian. All right.
Exactly.
That's funny. So what bands have you seen that absolutely like blow your mind live?
The best bands I've ever seen live. Um, so uh, Judas Priest in 1990 on the Painkiller tour. That was my first ticketed concert. I can't remember how the hell old I was. I was born in 70. I was a young kid, basically. And that was freaking mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. Seeing them at, you know, not maybe not their peak, but on their first like comeback from like the Turbo and Ram It Down records, their true return to form, which was just like woof. They were amazing. Slayer at that time was also untouchable. The first Danzig band, I saw them around about the same time with Erie and Chuck and Mason. That was a band that you couldn't fuck with. The Rollins band actually from that same era. That was a real monster of a band. I know not many people like care for Henry's vocals, and he's kind of a divisive figure, but that band and him on that stage, I saw them with the Beastie Boys and like some rap group or something, and they just destroyed the place. It was like a nuclear bomb went off. Um, Spirit Caravan. I actually was lucky enough to connect with dudes in this little group called 66 Goat back in the late 90s, and they played at this little bar here in Indianapolis, and I finagled basically being their roadie on a mini tour um, for them and Spirit Caravan. And that was, just after Spirit Caravan had changed their name from Shine, they had just become Spirit Caravan. That was a mega learning experience. Very fucking cool to just one to be kind of thrown up against like real serious like figures in the heavy rock, doom rock, whatever the hell you want to call it, community. That was awesome. Earth Ride was fucking killer. They were always killer to play with. Um, Las Cruces, of course, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Um, God, that Heaven and Hell show when they were supporting Priest and it was Motorhead and Testament were on the bill. I saw it up in Chicago at like an amphitheater, and Sabbath was like it was a Priest tour, like they were the headliner, I've never seen anybody make Motorhead and Judas Priest irrelevant in one evening. I'm just saying that, you know,
Right.
Motorhead didn't
Wow.
matter. Yeah, Judas Priest was completely humiliated. It was just like literally laughing as like, 40, 50 years of heavy metal history. It's just like, it's almost like Iommi said that. And it's like, all right, we're just going to do a reset. I'm going to show you all exactly how it's done. This is what heavy is. I'm getting cold, goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, just, it
That's
was like,
wild.
yeah, pure mastery. And I mean, it's Sabbath, they've always been perfect, but that was one of those nights where it was just like, everything was perfect, everything was flawless. And yeah, I've never seen anybody make Testament, Motorhead, and Judas Priest like, what's the point? Even like the show was over. Like, I think we left early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just like, oh well, we're never going to see anything like that again. It was a master class of power.
That's all. That would have been a show, man. I'd love to have been at that show. Jesus.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was like 2009, early, maybe summer of 2010. I can't really remember.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
crazy. All right. So what was your biggest takeaway doing on the Spirit Caravan tour?
Um, just seeing how seasoned underground like troops, like they were a locked in, tight unit that managed to deal with all the little details of small club shows, because they were playing at like the Continental, I think it was, in St. Mark's Place, and this is way back, in the '90s. So I don't even know if any of that shit's there anymore. Um, but yeah, it was just like a rinky-dink club, but just in Greenwich Village. So it was like, okay, yeah, this, and just watching how they did things, and the two or three shows that we did, like learning, it's like I was roadieing, so it's by the numbers, like this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, and then just absorbing that and keeping that in my brain for the future. How the almost like military like precision that they hit the stage, and then just you know making a friend of Dave Sherman that day, and he was a friend that you know like fuck man, like to have somebody like that who was like, man, do you play music? What kind of amp you have? And I actually ate with Wino that day. It was one of those situations where, like, everybody gathers up, and then like everybody shakes hands, meets each other, and then everybody scatters to the four winds. And I actually ended up eating a meal with Wino, which a few years earlier I'd been like given a copy of that Obsessed album, The Church Within, and instantly this dude goes to like fucking rock god status in my head.
Yeah.
Like wow. And now I'm fucking just eating pizza with this dude. It was like, this is kind of a mind scrambler. It was really very, very, like, I made some friends that I still like treasure to this day. Um and learned a lot real quick as to fucking how to make things work.
That's the important thing. I think that's probably the coolest thing about touring is not like getting up on stage and playing. That obviously is cool, but it's all the behind the scenes stuff that goes into it, right? The camaraderie among the bands, and
Yeah.
everything has to be a very specific way. This is how we get, the sound. This is how we perform.
Yeah. How to get to eight, how the performance goes, and how to keep everything together so that, because in the subsequent years, I've worked at the same club where I first saw 66 Goat. I actually ended up, you know, bouncing, doing sound, doing all the little things that you do in a hole in the wall club. And I learned to appreciate people who had took the time to learn just that basic level of professionalism, where it's just like a band that, the headlining band with a bona fide rock legend, really, if they were going to take extra time and like stretch it out and make everybody's life miserable, they would be the ones that fuck, yeah, of course. No, boom, 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 perfect, on stage, ready to go. It's always the unfortunate kid band where they show up with like a shopping bag full of shorted out chords that are like a bowl of spaghetti, and it's just like,
Yeah.
gotta find the right one, dude. And it's just like 20 minutes later, you're still trying to get the first band off,
It's like, come
and the
on.
promoters yell. Yeah, it's like we
Yeah.
got this done. This is day one shit, man. Here, day one. If the cable is shorting out, throw it away. It's not coming back.
Get rid of that shit.
Exactly.
What do you think about the Obsessed being nominated for a Grammy?
They were nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah.
Fucking A, good for him. Fucking A. I hope he wins it.
Yeah,
I
me
love
too.
that new record. I love that new record. Like fucking Wino is one of the fucking best dudes in the world. Just one of the best dudes in the world. I got nothing negative to say about him. Every time I've had a chance to see him, fucking hang out, it's always been just fucking top notch time. He's one of the best people I know.
Yeah. Gilded Sorrow is such a solid fucking album from start to finish. And,
Absolutely.
that addition of Jason Taylor in there just, it adds another level of fucking awesome to it.
Absolutely it does. Absolutely. It's like perfect.
For sure. Did you catch them on any of the runs they've done?
I see. So another part of my life that's going on right now is so I take care of my dad. He's 81 years old and he's got some severe mobility issues and dementia. I'm his primary caregiver. So, I live with one of these things not too far from me because never know when he's going to need something. And yeah, it's just the season my life is in right now. I haven't been to a show in years. It's just one of those things like while Gates of Slumber was like moving along and getting going back in the early 2000s, he basically enabled everything. you know he was just there to help. So at this point, with him being in the twilight of his life, i have to I have to be here for him. There's no way I can just be like, well, Dad, thanks for everything, but I gotta go play this fucking show. So,
Right.
I can't do that. It's just like,
Right.
you know, at some point in time, you know, your priorities need to shift, and you need to get. At least I needed to do this. Like it's something that has to happen. So unfortunately, it's curtailed like a lot of getting out, a lot of going places. But in the end, like I have the satisfaction of knowing that my pops is okay, and that to me is like that's number one right now.
Yeah, that's important. It's funny. My dad, his final years, we had actually just started to reconcile probably 2 or so years before he
Yeah,
passed. So we started to reconcile, and then
that's
like it
good.
was going good, but then he was gone. I'm just like, at least.
But at least you got a chance to get whatever the baggage was before. At least you were able to put it to some kind of rest, and that's good because I know. I don't know. Maybe I don't. I'm assuming your situation, but um, to me, I just would not want to have like any sort of I helped my dad out while my mom was passing. She died in 2017, and I moved back. This is his home I'm sitting in right now. I moved back in because he needed help. Like he just couldn't handle things, and it changed my life irrevocably. And I just we went through that together, and you know I just have to be with him through this transition in his life. You know what I'm saying? It's like, for at least as
Yeah,
long as, like, I'm not gonna, if it ever got to the situation where where I was unable to, to help, of course, at that point we have to take different options. But here in his home, like if he's got his dog, he's got his TV, he can watch Archie Bunker until he's blue in the face. You, you know, like even though he's got diabetes, I can sneak him a little, like here's half a beer for you, Pop. I know, you got your
yeah,
meds here soon, And if he was in like some kind of fucking facility, it would just be all that shit would be done, and it would be like a death sentence to him. And I couldn't do that. There's no dollar amount or like, well, if you do this, like the devil at the crossroads. Well, if you just throw your old man in a home, you'll get X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, don't talk to me.
Right.
because it's also everything passes so quickly. Like everything, like, and I know I'm talking like an old man here, but it's just like it's true. Like
We are
looking
old.
back, yeah, yeah. Well, no, I mean actually, like 81 is old. I'm still kicking around here, but I'm wise enough and old enough and wise enough to know that like time flies by, you know? And it's good that you like patch things up with your pops because fuck man, that's an ugly bad thing. I'm glad that you were able to do that. Really
Yeah,
glad
me
you were.
too. Appreciate that. And it's obviously we go through a lot, right, as humans, and we think, man, 80 is old, but realistically, we are here for such a short amount of time.
Yeah,
That I was thinking about this the other day. Like when I was 20, I was like, oh man, 40's old. And now I'm damn near 50. And it's like, I still don't feel old,
no,
you know?
no. Although I'm sliding into 50. I'm going to be 50 here in just a few weeks, and I've never really, there's the benchmark years there was like, 30, 40. Man, that shit never. This one
Right.
sort of like sitting here like, huh, half a century. A lot of things are, and it's just, maybe it's just because of the isolation, because I have been like disconnected. Like I couldn't name three current new bands and their records. Sorry. I can't. Like, I can, like this, well, I don't know, Obituary, like they have that new one. But that's hardly new, but they're not like a new band. They're like from back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, like shit, what I mostly listen to on a daily basis, like so I listen to a little Blaze Foley, listen to uh that Trapeze record, Medusa, and here after lunch, I might listen to like that Internal Void demo record Voyage, that they did. I didn't even know it came out. Like I was just sitting there like, oh, what's this? Internal Void? This is new. This a wait, what? This came out after Mattress? Oh, it's a demo. Ugh. You know what I mean? I'm clueless. I don't keep up with anything. I live in this little bubble where like pretty much, you know, it is what it is. I can't pretend that I'm informed when I'm not.
Right.
So,
Well, it's with the amount of stuff that comes out now, that's coming out currently, it's really hard to keep up with it. Like
it's
li I
impossible.
I get probably 30 emails a day about like new releases, and I'm just like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's heavy. I mean, I'm glad that so much is going on, and I wish that I had more time in the day to like dedicate to it. Just because I used to, 20 years ago, it was very important to have, like know who was putting the records out, just so you could hear it.
Yeah.
And now it's like just there's so much other stuff that's going on, and like I guess in some ways, like I would much rather listen to like you know Johnny the Fox for the 10,000th time because I know that like it's almost like a balm, like soothing to like the soul, like when you hear Fool's Gold. It's just
Yeah.
like yeah, and you know it's just the old familiar favorites that you've heard, and I've talked to people like younger people who like reach out and shit like that, and they're like, you just don't keep up with anything, dude. You don't care about anything but like Saint Vitus, and it's just like, well, that's not true. I care about a lot of things. I care about Trouble, and all the other old fart things out there. It's just it's not that I'm opposed to newer bands. You know I just don't have the time to
Yeah.
dedicate with everything else that goes on.
Well, I'm gonna help you out. I don't know if you know or not, but some of the guys from Trouble have a new band called Legions of Doom.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know the Legions of Doom. That's got Henry and it's all the dudes from the Skull. Yeah,
Oh yeah, the
yeah.
Skull. Yeah.
I'm sure that they're yeah. The old band Wretch, we did like some shows early on with them when Oli was still playing drums, and it was Matt Goldberg was on guitar too. Fucking great. It's a real shame that that band didn't. It's fucking horrible about Eric too. Like that was just you know it was just really fucking tragic. Just fucking
Yeah.
tragic. because he was another person that kind of like Wino that I'd got to meet. In fact, his solo band Blackfinger, they had that first record that they did, and that came out right about the time my mom was passing, and that was like really, really profound. Like some real songs on that were really profound for me. So, him passing was just like, God, fuck that,
Yeah, I mean that's another, it's another like nail in the coffin to know that we are just not here for, we don't know when we're
Saying,
going to pass.
no, you don't. The sands are running. You just got to do the best you can every day and make the best calls you can, and try not to beat yourself up if you make a mistake. Just get it right. If you get it wrong, you make it right next time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Just we all make mistakes. We got to keep
Absolutely.
that shit rolling. So with the new EP, is there a song on there aside from like At Dawn that you like more than something else?
Not really. I mean, I'm pretty much in love with all of the tunes. The real standout to me, I guess, the one that's the most different is The Plague, the one that ends the record.
Yeah.
Um, that is, I originally wrote that verse, the intro riff verse, back in 1998. Like that has been in like, you know, the germinating stage for a very, very, very long time. It just never, like, that song never felt like it was the time for it to come about and to be fully realized, until we I was just like, and it was sort of like at the back of my head, like we're like, we had every other song, like, all right, we need to get another tune. And the thing was that we'd been working on this for years, and it was like, in my and this is maybe one of the things that I do like cling pretty hard to, is that eventually you have to nip it in the bud and be like, all right, we're done. There's no more new material. We're not going to introduce another song. We're going to take what we have and we're going to tighten it down, and we're going to go and record it, and we're going to put a we're going to put a bow on this motherfucker, and it's done. Because, like I alluded to earlier, there was like songs that we were starting to work on that were like clearly different. And then there's stuff that I've written that's kind of, even, I wouldn't say a huge departure, but that just doesn't belong to the songs that are on this release right here. So, but we needed one more, and then out of the back of my head was like, hey, there's me. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's that old thing. And what a perfect time to do it, because like Chuck was like very integral to all of that early stuff that we did. And it's like, here he's playing drums again. It's like, this this is where this goes. So I introduced it, and it fell together pretty quickly. We kind of did some tweaking, and yeah, it came together and was done within a matter of weeks. And that's practicing once a week. So like 2 or 3 practices, it was good, and we just tightened it up. But it's neat to see something that's that old come out and finally be realized. But I mean, I don't love it any more than I love like Full Moon Fever or We Are Perdition, which is another cool one. Like, I don't sing that. I just hit the choruses with Steve. I just play guitar. I didn't do The only thing I did was like the riff at the end had been in the middle, and I was just like, no, the riff on this one needs to go. This is the ride out riff. This is the ride out riff. So I
Yeah,
dug my heels in on that, and I just play guitar, and it's kind of cool.
that's awesome. It's always neat, like you flesh out a song and you're like, oh, this is where it's at. And then you take one piece and put it somewhere else, and you're like, oh my God.
That does it. And that was the thing. It was like, it just was kind of clunky. And I'm like, this isn't what happens here. This is like, this riff, I need to switch up to my neck pickup and get real fuzzy and bloopy like with it, and just kind of let it ride out. This is the bong hit riff,
Yeah,
It's like, this is the
that's
one to
funny.
ride out on.
I like how you put that, the bong hit riff.
Yeah, I mean, it's trippy. It's in the same key, and it works, but it's a coda. You know what I mean? It's like never appears earlier in the song, and it just kind of rides out in solos over this awesome like do 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 do. I'm like, great, yes, let that bass work. I'm just going to be real fat with the tone. It's going to be beautiful.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. You guys have shows coming up?
Unfortunately, no, we don't have anything booked. It's like there's, again, like my evening starts to wrap up at about 8:30. Like we start, you know, we're into like right now the old man's watching Archie Bunker here in a few hours. It's like, well, we're gonna switch over to something else and try to keep it real familiar stuff that because he can't follow. Like he just can't follow, but he remembers this stuff and it's stuck there. So he can be a part of it. And we, about 8:30 at night, we start wrapping it up, slowly but surely. And by between 9:30 and 10:30, it's bed. It's like it's such a weird non-rock and roll life. But the thing is like you say, like we were just talking about, it's like nothing lasts forever. This is just the season and the time that it is, and eventually, things will change, and then we'll do what we do.
Yeah, that's the truth. But at least you're there for your dad now, which is
Yeah, that's, I mean, and it's weird to talk about this in like a rock and roll thing, but again, it's like I'm very much taken back that anybody gives a shit at all.
yeah,
So I mean, I don't know, like to the people watching or listening, it's just like thank you so much, for supporting us and remembering us. And um you know I hope that you love the record. We got more stuff that's coming out, and eventually, yeah, we'll be back. But for right now, we just have, I personally have things that I just have to take care of that, you know, it just doesn't work. I can't have them off the side of the stage. Maybe I should. Who the fuck knows? Maybe that's the X factor that would get us off the top, like him glaring at me and telling me to turn that shit down.
right. You're like, dad, look at this. Now
Hey,
you're
Dad,
stuck.
what do you have to say? you know, I, it's, yeah, it's, yeah, it's a weird time, but I'm just thankful that anybody cares. I'm thankful that, that Chuck and Steve have stuck it out and made the record with me. I don't think people really appreciate everything that you don't appreciate shit until it's not there anymore.
Right.
And I think after, after you lose so much stuff, you learn to preemptively just start to appreciate and count your blessings. You see them a lot clearer, when it's like, when you lose friends at like such a shitty rate. um you start to appreciate the ones you have, and you appreciate the things that you get to do a lot,
Yeah,
a lot more.
that's the truth. Life's short, man.
It is.
Dig it.
That's a garden too.
That's it. I was just thinking that, like, should have said life's a garden, man. Dig it.
Can't have no in
You
your heart, brother.
you're my sister. You're my sister.
Oh man, I watched that just like last week or something. That fucking thing is still golden,
Dude,
still
it
solid gold.
cracks me up. We did the Headbangers Boat a couple of weeks ago, my wife and I, and on the way home we were talking about that movie. I'm just like, it's so fucking funny. And even now, like, what is it, 20
Yeah,
years old, 20 plus years old?
almost
And
25 years old, and it's
yeah,
like it's still a fucking classic. Like
like
it,
people
it,
still quote it. Like it's just it's like,
like the best thing in that movie to me is when Kid Rock is reading the letter that he wrote and he can't even fucking read it. It's just like, dear Robbie, don't tell Joe. It's just like, I don't know where that direction came from. I'd like to give it to Kid Rock. Not a lot of people hate Kid Rock, but I'm going to go ahead and say he deserved a fucking Oscar for that, because having the sensitivity to understand that Robbie would not be able to read the note that he wrote. That's
that
10D chess.
that shit's so fucking funny. And the dude with the fireworks stand, that one, every time I pass a fireworks stand, I'm like,
Okay.
I can't get over that.
Snakes and sparklers. You know, it's so good. Home's where you make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the way it ties into all the other films that those bozos did. It's just like
Yeah.
all the
Well,
little things that happen around.
yeah, I love it because almost like all of those films do tie in, somewhere,
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah. Like over the weekend, I just watched Waterboy. Wife wanted to watch it. We're sitting there, we're watching it. That same old dude's like, I'm like, is that the same guy? Is this like the extended the Joe Dirt extended, they have the Marvel extended universes. Like
Yeah.
in this world, in the Waterboy world, does Joe Dirt live there? Can the Waterboy go to Silverton? It's
Hell yeah.
they really should
Water.
explore that. I mean, there's been nothing funny to laugh at in such a long time. They really need to get the
I
Joe Dirt extended universe.
I think that someone is trying to tie it together or has been trying because that would just be it would be so
Epic,
fucking phenomenal. Yeah.
epic.
Uh, all right, Carl. I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day, taking your lunch break to come hang out and chat with me about the Gates of Slumber.
Right on. Thank you so much.
Hell yeah. Well, go have yourself a great day, brother.
You too, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Yep. See ya.